So men go, aha, I know how to deal with this unfair situation of no-fault divorce. I'll make her sign a prenup. And prenups are always signed, proposed by men and signed by women, except, in the highest spheres where, whether you find some wealthy women and, I don't know, they marry their boy toy. Or where you see wealthy people agree to them where they both have wealth. And they just say, okay, we can have a prenup. But let's look at how these prenups get thrown out. They're already, in the manosphere, nobody trusts them anymore. Anybody who says, oh, I'll just get a prenup, they'll laugh you off the stage. But it's worth looking at. This is from Forbes, and a couple of years ago. And the prenup is a contract. It's not a marriage. It's parallel to the marriage. And what it's saying is, what is the division of assets going to be in case of divorce? And now they're getting thrown out right and left. They're no good. They're just not going to work anymore. So here again, you get a kind of contract that women won't be held to. They won't be held to at all. So the agreement can be fraudulent. And what that means is one of the parties, it's usually the man, doesn't disclose all his assets before the marriage. It's astounding. Discovery is something in criminal law where the defendant has the right to know what the prosecutor has against him. Show me what your evidence so I can prepare my defense. So they're supposed to show everything. But since when in a civil contract do I have to tell you all my assets? If you and I agree to a rental lease, you want to see that I have the threshold of monthly earnings. And maybe you want to see a bank account with a little nest egg. And then you say, okay, but I need a cosigner too. Okay, so, but you don't have, all my assets? That's ridiculous. Show you the title to my car, show you to the, now maybe if I was trying to convince you that I'm a quality client, I would show you more assets. I might even turn the title of my car over to you as collateral. I might even endorse it. And look, that's all fine and dandy, but there's no duty. I only have to meet the threshold for you to say, okay, yeah, you can rent the apartment. Oh, great. Now you're my landlord. So this is grounds for having the prenup thrown out. Another grounds is that it's coerced. That is, it's signed under duress or signed without mental capacity. How about that? Once again, that they enter into this agreement, but then later on, some judge says, well, she didn't have the mental capacity. This is an adult getting married before the court, before the justice of the peace, before, and you come back later and say, well, you didn't have mental capacity. What? She had mental capacity to wouldn't it throw out the marriage too? She doesn't have mental capacity to sign the prenup. Wouldn't it throw the marriage out too? No mental capacity.
That's the question that came to my mind.
So you get to see that this is clown world. This has no, the idea that you didn't understand it. Have you ever been? I remember as a kid, in my early rental agreements, walking away without my deposits. Yeah, I didn't understand it. I honestly didn't understand it, but I learned. But it didn't get me my deposit back. I had to learn that.
You have to learn to just not pay your last month and live it out.
Yeah, well, that's some of the smarter kids do that. They're like, we smell this, and they always try to pull that on young people because they think you don't know. And anyway, but for example, it's coerced. You tell the gal, the classic case, the soap opera case is, you're almost at the altar. And you say, honey, well, the guests are here, but I need you to sign these papers. And they're going to say that that's a kind of coercion. That the marriage, but no, what you're really saying, I'm pulling the plug on the marriage. And that's the proper way to look at it. Because if she's really marrying you for you, she shouldn't have any trouble saying, my assets that I earned before marrying you are mine. And the stuff we build together moving forward, may be subject to a division. But that's another really dubious way of well, what I mean by it is that women get to argue that they're juveniles, that they didn't know, that they didn't. You could see the same argument in the divorce case, that we're going to have no-fault divorce, just like the juvenile courts. Well, they're showing their hand. They think one of the parties is a juvenile. And I think they're right, by the way. Paperwork not properly filed. This is process bullshit where they're going to try to find something to weasel out of it. And that's not good faith, is it? So the contract, I do these translations of these contracts, and the contract has a clause in it that says the titles used in the clauses are not part of the contract. They're for looking up the clauses only. And the reason they do that is because some joker comes by and says, look at the title of the clause. It contradicts the body. So I don't have to pay. That wouldn't be in the contract if someone didn't try that bullshit. And it's clearly bad faith. Clearly bad faith. And that's what this is too. The prenup is signed without proper legal representation. That's just astounding. If we're gonna enter into a contract about, make it a lease for an apartment. You're the landlord, I'm the tenant. And I bring my lawyer to the meeting. Aren't you getting cold feet already? What kind of, if you're lawyering up, this is a huge, would be a big red light, a big red flag. To not.
Well, I mean, if it's a contract, and this is what many marriages lack before they begin, is an open conversation about finances.
Right.
And the contract, it's perfectly acceptable that both parties go to a lawyer to review it. But lawyering up as a competitive edge you're looking for, as a way to get more than you may or may not deserve out of a marriage, or looking as a marriage as a way to create income for yourself, that's a different story, right? And that's kind of
yeah. And your point is well taken. That maybe a prenup, you say, look, honey, this is the way it's got to be, or and you lay it on the table. I really can't go forward, and she may be able to come back and say, that's a little bit heavy because remember I'm giving up my job, and at least some kind of golden parachute of some kind, and in the loving moment grant these things. But it just the issue here is that the law is going to cancel this prenup. It's going to throw it out.
Right. I mean, it may not be romantic, but it sure would be helpful to get out of the way before the marriage instead of after, so that there is no disagreement or trying to bend the law to the will of the supposedly aggrieved party, right?
Yeah, but it's all it's proper legal representation. She could impugn the quality of her own lawyer and say it wasn't proper. Once you get a feminist judge up there, she's going to go, no, you screwed. This prenup is out the window. And the point is, there's ways out of this, and these are the 5 ways. Now, this is the kicker: the agreement contains ridiculous provisions, or is simply too lopsided. Well, that's just a judgment call. it may be that the husband is very wealthy and the wife is not particularly wealthy. That's already lopsided going in.
Right.
The ridiculousness comes in where I expect sex. I expect you not to be fat. We're going to stay fit. We can't have any of these things. These are all considered duties that would be beneath the woman. That this is the idea where they're above it all, where they're becoming our betters. You can't expect me to continue to have sex. She can pull the plug on the sex, but you cannot deny the money, the provision. You cannot retaliate, on your duties, and you can't go get sex elsewhere. Then they come in and then they have grounds. Well, that's where they're screwed because you tell them, no, it's a no-fault divorce state. I can fuck around. But, a lot of this has to do with the sympathy you get from the judge.
Sure.
Things like how many visits from what if we go into a marriage where, my parents are dead and, my brothers and sisters live far away. And, but you're from a family of 18 siblings and cousins and nephews and nieces. And we have a constant parade of visitors all year. And I'm afraid of that. And I'm like, look, you're going to get 3 visits a year with family, so use them. Nope, can't do that. You just got to take anything they throw at you. So, so that's considered a ridiculous provision. Well, good, you're imposing on the other person, all these people coming through your house and drinking your beer. So these things can be, motives for throwing these out. So, and this happened very quickly. The feminists broke this down that these prenups weren't going to work anymore. And so nobody saw this in the past, or maybe they did, that if we, destroy this kind of contract, the marriage, the civil contract of marriage, and then throw out prenups willy-nilly, that other types of contracts were going to be vulnerable to the wishes of women.
All right, so this is where you bringing it home.
Yeah, this is where I'm bringing it home. And I think that's what we get. Now, it has to do with women have adopted a kind of, the religion of equality, while men still live in this world of inequality. So that where we say, look, the parties to a contract, we don't even need to be equal. We're equal before the law, but what I get out of the contract, in fact, is more valuable to me than what I'm paying you. And what you get out of it is more valuable to you than what you're giving to me. You want the money more than you want the apartment. And I want the apartment more than I want the money. And this is a very, male way of thinking that in some ways it's not an even trade. That I think I got the better deal. Otherwise I wouldn't part with the money. I wouldn't part with it. It's, it may feel like it in the moment. It often happens with apartments. By the 3rd month, you go, yeah, this rent ain't so bad. It hurts at the beginning when you have to put the deposit down and you're a little tapped out, and then you got to do the move and all the money is going out the door. By the time you're in there and you go, yeah, this is working out fine. Stay 2-3 years. I like it. And this has happened to me repeatedly. And so I think I'm getting the better of the deal. And the landlord is happy to receive the money at the beginning of the month and thinks he's getting the better of the deal. But women think there's kind of a secular cosmic justice. That is, if we got less, that needs to be repaired. And that needs to be fixed because it's unequals. It didn't equal. The idea that though they're changing the deal after the fact doesn't Doesn't even cross their mind. Know that there's an injustice there. The other thing is they're not. They really don't even accept themselves the way they are. The way they are is that they are risk averse in general. And taking the money up front, I thought it was a smart move. Because you read the tournament and the number of friendlies you can get and tourneys and what happens in the World Cup is a big unknown. We really didn't know that the U.S. women were going to dominate. That was not known. Everyone else, they looked at the other teams. These really, you think you're going to train harder than the Chinese? You think, they're all in the army. They train them to death. So they're a good deal. And then, of course, you get to see how well you do, and then you get another contract, and you say, okay, now we'll bet on ourselves. Well, that's just a reasonable way to go about things. Mm-hmm. But, to demand, equal pay to the men and leave aside that the quality of the game is not the same. The men's game is superior, and it does command, better ticket prices, better TV deals. It sells way more merchandising, and then leave aside though there's still very good sponsorships for all these gals, and they're their own owners when it comes to sponsorship for tennis shoes and jerseys and feminine hygiene spray. Do they still have that? I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, Uncle Andy, it's put it on a billboard time. Break it down. The lens you're looking at this particular topic, you want to put it on a busy billboard for all who drive through LA traffic when there's no COVID to read. What is your billboard message?
Well, maybe it won't fit on a billboard.
All right.
Feeling a little verbose, but there's this idea that women aren't held to the law for one reason or another. And the main ways of getting out of the law is the law is really out of your reach. It's too high of a threshold for you to be held to it. That's the juvenile argument or the mental capacity argument. So they're using that. But then you get the other one where these expectations are ridiculous. We can't be held to that. You see this all the time when the senator's son gets pulled over. Don't you know who I am? Don't you know that I'm the guy that doesn't have to obey the speed limit? I'm the guy. So I'm above it. And so this case was a rare case where they got pinned down and held to it, and they howled. They howled to the high heavens. They said, no, you're going to get pinned down. You're actually going to fulfill what you agreed to. So, and they're not, though. They're going to appeal it. And I think what's going to happen is the Federation is going to wind up settling. So they're going to extort money. Maybe not the 60-some millions. They're going to extort some money. And because the Federation is just going to pay out. And say, okay.
So your billboard would say, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't?
Well, something like that. And it'd be like, they're either above the law or they're beneath the law. And in that dynamic, they become our betters.
Yeah. Okay, friends. This has been another edition of Uncle Andy Presents Soccer Sockatuya, Pillars of the Constitution. As always, the opinions of Uncle Andy do not represent those of Nephew Johnny or anyone else in the Andy family. We just figure letting him rant allows him to get it out of his system and may provide solace to others who share his perspective of the world. Any last words, Andy?
No, over and out.